Thank you, Barbara, for nice introduction. Welcome everyone to the session. I'm honored to open this session. And I'm going to tell you about the study that we conducted in 11 case study regions. The farms that we included in the analysis are very heterogeneous in terms of farm type, size, but also political framework and climate settings. However, we still found some common patterns with regard to resilience capacities that I'm going to present to you today. To begin, although resilience is usually associated with capacity to withstand challenges, we in the Surefarm project suggest to see the concept much broader. So, in particular, we suggest to distinguish between robustness, adaptability, and transformability. And resilient farms are not only those who manage to survive in the case of challenge, but also those who manage to adapt or even radically transform their internal structure and processes. This slide sheds more light on what exactly we understand under the 3 resilience capacities. We asked each farmer to assess those statements based on the 7-item leader scheme. And then black statements are associated with positive resilience capacity, which means that the closer to 7 farmer assesses, the more resilient he assesses himself. And the red statements are associated with negative resilience capacity and were treated accordingly. Afterwards, we calculated the average mean of all the 4 statements. So therefore, we got 3 resilience indices for each of the farmer. 1 for robustness, 1 for adaptability, and 1 for transformability. These are the results across case study regions. Here 1 means extremely non-resilient, and 7 means extremely resilient. And you see that the results are heterogeneous, not only across case study regions, but also within each case study region, because their distributions are quite broad. So now I have a question to you. Having seen this, what would be your guess about the relationship between the 3 resilience capacities? Do you think they are dependent? And if yes, then how? Sorry? Say again?
Yes. The answer is yes.
They are mutually dependent. Would you suggest a positive dependence or negative one? So if a farmer scores 7 for robustness, is it more likely that he would also score close to 7 for those 2, or the other way around?
I think they are positive.
Well, when we conducted this study, we had arguments for both in favor and against, and we didn't know what to expect. But the results showed that they indeed are mutually dependent, in particular positively dependent. So what we did, we identified 7 clusters based on combination of 3 resilience capacity indices. You see the clusters here, and on this 3-dimensional figure, each single point is associated with 1 farm. And you see that they are distributed more or less across the diagonal, and also based on the clusters, there is no low, high, high cluster or high, low, low cluster, which makes it hint that the 3 resilience capacities indeed are mutually dependent, particularly positively dependent. But we didn't stop here, we continued, and the next question that was interesting to us, what actually determines the resilient capacity? Why one farmer assesses himself as better resilient, while the other farmer assesses himself as not resilient? And when doing this analysis, we based upon resilient framework that we developed within the Surefarm project, and next to resilience capacities, we suggest to distinguish between 4 other elements of resilience. So these resilience capacities that I've just presented were the basis for identifying clusters. But then we compared clusters based on the other 4 elements. So in particular, we asked each farmer about his personal characteristics, but also about farm settings. We also asked farmers to assess challenges that they're facing, how severe they are, or maybe not. With regard to functions, they might be categorized as provision of public and private goods, and we asked farmers to distribute 100 points between 8 predefined functions. An example of private good function might be provision of food products or ensuring sufficient farm income. And an example of a public good function might be animal welfare or ensuring attractiveness of rural area. So farmers distributed 100 points between different functions based on their importance. And then finally, we asked farmers to assess some resilient attributes that are present at farm. In particular, we asked about risk management instruments, but also about self-assessed involvement in networks and openness to innovation. I'm not going to go into detail for each single item, so this is only an example how we treated each item. We run t-tests, so basically we compared the distribution of items across clusters. Here is an example of providing employment and good working conditions. This is an example of public good function. And you see here the revealed mean, average mean across clusters. So here is a cluster with low resilience capacity. Here is a cluster with the highest resilience capacity. And those numbers here mean whether the distributions between clusters differ from each other or not. So those red cells indicate that there is no statistically significant difference between clusters. And the white cells say that the difference is statistically significant. But apart from this quantitative analysis, we also simply looked whether we visually can identify some pattern. Here is an example of for a number of implemented on-farm risk management instruments. So simply how many are present, and also across clusters. Here is the lowest resilience capacity. Here is the highest resilience capacity. And what you can see here is sort of this shape, meaning that farms with rather low resilience capacity tend to implement less risk management instruments, while farmers with high resilience capacity tend to implement more risk management instruments. So we did this analysis for all the items that we asked for. And what we identified is that farms with higher perceived resilience capacities are associated with those characteristics. So they have longer farming experience, they are greater in size, they have low share of family labor and a higher share of hired labor. Farmers perceive providing public goods as relatively more important. Farmers also are relatively less risk averse and have lower downside risk perception. Those farms are characterized with higher number of implemented risk management instruments. And finally, farmers are more actively involved in networks and more open to innovation. Two issues that I would like to stress out here. First, we are talking about perceived resilience capacities and not real ones. Those are self-assessed capacities. And second, the causality remains unclear. So we cannot conclude anything on the direction of the effect. So we don't know whether if a farm is more resilient, then it also becomes, for example, more actively involved in network, or does it work other way around? So the farms that are more actively involved in network also become more resilient. This we cannot say yet. So to conclude, our value added was that we focused on 3 resilience capacities simultaneously. We also focused on multiple determinants of resilience capacities, and we considered different farm types and different key state regions. We conclude that robustness, adaptability, and transferability are mutually dependent, and therefore shall be studied together. And we also provided first insights into determinants of resilience capacities, and we suggest that our analysis shall serve as a basis for follow-up quantitative analysis. I thank you for your attention and looking forward to your questions.